I've always been a true crime fanatic my entire life.
इतना confidence कहाँ से लाते हो? What do you all eat?
We made a crime podcast. I think we started telling Indian stories, not in the Sansani case kind of way.
Have either of you played a scary prank on each other?
A lot of true crime fanatics out there who tell us that they love
I can see your
sleeping to our
manager raise her
podcast.
hand and say she sleeps to us as well.
Hi guys, I'm Ananya Panday and welcome to So Positive Podcast. Remember बचपन में हम वो shows देखते थे कोई है या CID और हमें डर लगता था पर मजा भी आता था. Today my partners, हाँ जी, दो हैं. My partners are here to bring that feeling back with a tinge of desiness. Welcome Aishwarya Singh and Aryaan Mishra, the very, very, very popular podcasters from Desi Crime Podcasts. Hi guys!
Hi.
Firstly, big fan, you all know that because I know when you all were going through some changes with your channel and I was like, where have all the videos gone? I need to watch everything. I made my manager slide into your DMs and ask like, what's up, when are the videos coming back?
Yeah.
So, big fan guys.
Thank you.
But now I've taken a bit of a break because I was terrified and I was not getting
Yeah.
sleep alone in my house. So now I'm just on a bit of a break, but I will be rewatching it. But you know, my thought when I was starting this podcast, because it's about positivity, and the first idea that I wanted was that I want people to feel really calm, when they're listening to this. I want them to feel happy. But yours, your podcast is a little tonally different.
Yes.
So how did you come up with the idea of it? And was it a conscious choice to firstly get into the genre? What were the other ideas you all had before you all started? But obviously you all know that this doesn't have a very calming impact on the viewers and listeners. So how do you all feel about that and how do you deal with that?
Why crime is because I've always been a true crime fanatic my entire life. And so I've grown up listening to a lot of true crime podcasts from the West. When the podcast boom in the West happened, I was consuming a lot of Western content on crime. And there's something about a country's crime that sets the tone and gives a sort of explanation and gives a sort of idea into the country's psyche. So, for example, crimes in India tell a tale about how Indians view love and how Indians view, their relationship with their children. And so crime does play that really interesting function. And so I grew up listening to all these crimes from the West and realized we didn't have that sort of storytelling, that sort of narration coming out of India that was impact worthy. And that's something Aryaan and I realized when we were students in college, that we could fill this void where we could tell these crime tales that were impactful and meaningful in a sensitive sort of way and fill this void in the Indian podcasting world.
And speaking of the choice of the genre, it wasn't a cold, calculated one. We weren't set out to become content creators. She's a pre-law student. I'm a biology major.
Oh my God, I love biology.
Content creation wasn't on the periphery at any point.
Yeah.
But yeah, we made a crime podcast. I think we started telling Indian stories, not in the Sansani case kind of way, which appeal to a different target audience, right? An audience that has grown up, Gen Zs, younger millennials, who like quality, but who only get those in Western sources. And so I think we tried filling that void, and lo and behold, the dorm room project turned into something that, it's pretty cool.
Millions of people love listening to.
Yes.
But for me, I think the most important question would be, how do you all make sure that, the viewers and the listeners, because you all know that their state of mind after listening to something like this, like my state of mind after listening to it, definitely isn't going to be calming.
Yeah.
So what do you do to, you all can't really prevent it, but how do you deal with that?
I'd slightly disagree because she sleeps to true crime podcasts.
And there's a lot of true crime fanatics out there who tell us that they love
I can see your
sleeping to our
manager raise her
podcast.
hand and say she sleeps to us as well. So
So I think it's a
Yeah.
subjective response to true crime. There was definitely a phase in my life when I was much younger and I needed to change the way I was falling asleep to true crime. So fall asleep to a Friends and listen to my true crime podcast before I watched an episode of Friends. But as I've grown older, I've become an even more ardent true crime fanatic. So I think that's a subjective.
people have Huberman's Nidra Yoga and you have true crime
True crime.
podcast.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, I'm definitely not going to try doing that
No,
tonight
that's
because
fair.
there will be no sleep.
Yeah.
But this happens to me if I read one negative comment, even though there are hundreds of positive comments, I
Yeah.
suddenly spiral.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly just thinking about that one bad
Yeah.
thing. So how do you deal with that if you read a negative comment? And how do you all understand what is constructive criticism that you all can implement actually in your podcast, but then what is just blatant hate?
I think a couple of things we've both. So how do you take constructive criticism, and how are you not offended by the barrage of sometimes baseless
Negativity,
negativity
yeah.
that comes? So for constructive criticism, there's this thing in the Facebook office in San Francisco, they've plastered all over the walls, which is feedback is a gift. And if you imbibe that philosophy that feedback is a gift, you start, you don't, it's not connected to your ego. The feedback can be separate from you and you can analyze it objectively and choose to pick it. If you have that ingrained in your head, it helps. As for baseless hate, how do we deal with that?
I think it's a little bit of a hard line to tiptoe of these are the feedback comments and these are not. This is what I should take constructive criticism wise. And so for me, it's been very simple and it's easier said than done, but to just not read comments. And I lose out on a lot of love sometimes. And Aryaan will tell me, oh my God, people have loved this about an episode and they're writing it in the comments. And I don't sometimes know that they've loved that. But I think for my own mental health, for my own peace of mind, it's just really helped not engaging with the comments.
Yeah.
Basically, I read the hate comments.
You're her filter.
Yeah.
No, but that like I think it also depends on your state of mind, because I could be in a really good mood one day and then nothing affects me, and then even if I'm having a really bad day, the smallest of things could affect me.
True crime genre, it's the demographics are skewed. Like you wouldn't be barely. And the women-based communities tend to be much kinder and much more wholesome. So actually, we've dealt with bad comments, but it's never been a plethora like other creators face.
Okay, can I ask like a little controversial question?
Yeah.
Do you guys have fights when y'all are, coming up with ideas or thinking of like the script, and then how do y'all sort out?
So interestingly, on scripts, never, because the format that we follow is that the other person has no idea what the script is. So we alternate narration. So my case, Aryaan will have no idea even what the case is sometimes.
So when you're saying, then what happened, Aryaan? That's all real.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll tell him, please ask this question.
So he gets a segue and stuff. But for the most part, we have no idea what the scripts are. So no fights there. Creatively, sometimes we disagree. There are some things where we're like, this is a veto. You absolutely cannot do this. Like, I don't agree with
I'll tell you a small thing where when Reels just came out, Aishwarya was like, Aryaan, let's try Reels. So this thing that's on Instagram. I was like, Aishwarya, we're a podcast. What is this weird, like 15-30 second clip? She's like, no, try it. And I said, we'll get 7K views, 8K views. But I listened to her. We had a fight. I listened to her. We made like Reels, which was very weird for me. And millions of views and our podcast blew up. And so, the creative fight actually translated into something positive.
So, but how do y'all, if y'all did have a fight, you say talking about it with each other?
I think firstly, we don't disagree enough. The fact that we come together, you do disagree.
No.
Is this a disagreement?
Can we have a fight?
Please have a fight.
No, I think the fact that we came together for this podcast and chose each other as the very inception as partners for the podcast just meant that we had very similar, like aesthetic sense, for example, what colors look good, or the way we write our scripts is very similar right off the bat. So not a ton of disagreement. We're very, very specific with the times we say this is a veto, you absolutely cannot do this. Other times we're okay compromising for things that don't mean so much to us. So,
but I'm just trying to understand this world of true crime podcasting. So you fall asleep to listening to true crime and stuff, but of course, when you're researching stories like this and you're telling stories like this, where do you kind of learn where to draw the line? Like how much information is too much information? And what about the impact that it has, mental health wise on your team and even yourself? I'm sure at the end of the day, you're carrying a lot of the, traumatizing. There's a lot of that in you as well. After you've read so much about these horrifying incidents, how do you deal with that?
I think after having covered 110 episodes, there is some amount of, I wouldn't say desensitized in a bad way, but better able to handle all this negative stuff about the worst of humankind. But there are certain cases, where I'll research the hell out of it, read books and watch documentaries, and the dreams would be of the victims, right? I think there is a certain amount of peace we get when we cover a case and it somehow helps the victim's family, or the victim's family reaches out to us and acknowledges that it as a right portrayal of their story. So I think, that kind of balances it and makes the hard emotions kind of worth it. But it's about not sleeping to true crime podcasts. Like, I couldn't sleep to true crime podcasts if I'm researching one. I don't know how you do it.
I think to me, it's understanding that we on purpose have picked a niche that's incredibly can be negative, can be incredibly jarring. If we had chosen to make a podcast like you on something much more positive, we would have had much nicer sleep. So it helps contextualizing the fact that we have chosen to dive into a really negative aspect of humanity. Not all the world is like this. It just feels like that because we're constantly reading these stories. So contextualizing that this is just the content, the world isn't actually, our job isn't a representation of what the world is actually like out there.
And the audio world is constantly evolving, you know, they're making so many changes to it, and I'm sure you guys feel the pressure as well to, you know, you all did change your format. There's a lot more visuals now that I see with your channel
And now
and stuff.
celebrities are making podcasts and, you know, giving us tough competitions. So like, yeah, the audio world is changing. Yeah.
No, so how do you guys deal with pressure and, you know, kind of just like,
I think
how do you all stay competitive but in a good way?
Yes. We're type A's, yeah. We like it.
and we're very like type A's tend to be very cocky, and so I feel like we do what creatively feels very exciting. We've never, I don't think we've worried too much about trends other than stuff like, okay, this reel is trending, let's try to like follow the bandwagon.
इतना confidence कहाँ से लाते हो? What do you all eat?
I think we just started the podcast as a pet project. I was supposed to go to law school. He wanted to be an astrobiologist, whatever the hell that means. It was just a side project that ended up becoming something. And
every day you all do something you all love, and that gives you all...
Exactly. So I think that really plays into it. Maybe we would have been different kind of lawyers and astrobiologists. But with the podcast, it just started with so much love and so much like no ulterior intentions or motives. It translates now as well.
So I have a bit of a rapid fire for you. But this one has a little bit of a twist, okay?
Awesome.
Who's the one that cuts out most of the stuff during the recordings? Like, who's the harsh editor?
Ananya.
Why?
I'm very anal about the edits, about the seconds. I just, my brain just can't make peace with a cut if it's not exactly how I want it. I mean, my video editor is somewhere in the room here, and I'm a pain in the ass. Yeah.
Okay, who gets scared quicker? You do.
Yeah.
I'm a big puss.
She's a big puss.
Not the right example.
So how
But
are you
that's the
sleeping
point.
with this
Okay,
time?
so
I'm not
I don't know.
I know.
Ananya,
Let me
no
explain
idea.
this to you all. If you go bungee jumping or like let's say skydiving, it's scary, right?
Oh, you like the
I
you
like the
getting
adrenaline, and I think that's true for all crime junkies. We enjoy
okay.
the thrill of it. That's what it is.
Have either of you played a scary prank on each other?
Oh shoot, no. We should.
So we were in Malcha Mahal. So we did a series called Bhoot Busters where we stayed overnight in the 6 most haunted locations, Bangalore, Kuldara, whatnot. We were in Malcha Mahal. It was at midnight, okay, and I'm with this IR camera, self-recording. These guys leave me, and it was supposed to be a 1-minute solo investigation, and they just never came back. And in video, I'm like, guys, where are you? Guys, where? So that was one of the most haunting like pranks that they
It's
kind of
the
did.
same
I
recording.
would
Our video editor dropped a rock while we were trying to like ghost hunt. We thought it fell from the sky or like
And
someone.
so we are
Why
like
did you do
that's
that?
evident.
Or like by mistake? Or
No, no.
On purpose. very much
Content.
to scare
Ananya,
us.
Content
We're
के लिए कुछ
screaming in
भी.
the video like crazy people. But yeah, never known each other, I guess.
Not yet.
No.
Yeah. I feel like I don't want to start a fight. My podcast is all about positivity and love. So before I start any fights, that was it, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you for being
Thank you
here.
so
And I
much.
feel like a little overwhelmed because I'm like podcasting, the pros of podcasting. So I hope I did not disappoint.
Not at all. This was great. Thank you.
But you all gave me like a nice, funky, so positive homework to give everyone. And that is to do something that scares you. To do a task that was daunting or do something that is a little bit out of your comfort zone. And after that, you're going to feel a lot better about it.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thanks, guys.